So let's talk inflation, unemployment, and monetary policy. How does it all fit together? This video will focus on inflation and a quick review of the wage setting, price setting model. So the goals of the chapter are really at the heart of macroeconomics, which is understanding the causes and the consequences of business cycle fluctuations, the ups and downs. So specifically, we're looking at how everything moves together. What is inflation caused by, and how does the labor market impact it? And then how are inflation and wages set up? And then why is it that we like low and stable inflation? Why not deflation? What's wrong with that? And what are the problems with unstable inflation? And then finally, talking about supply side shocks and how that figures into understanding recessions, especially when it comes to wages. So enjoy. Here we go. So this video again focuses on an introduction and review of the wage setting, price setting model. So a quick word to the wise: you are not responsible for this model. It basically talks about how the central bank, in our case the Federal Reserve, has a bliss point, which is basically low and stable inflation and low unemployment. In other words, unemployment and inflation are both kind of bad things, and the Fed would like to have less of them. You do not need to prove it with this set of amazingly attractive but a little technical graphs. So ignore this. Here is an introduction and a quick trivia question. Where can you find zebras in San Luis Obispo County? Or can you at all? Let's see. In the fields beneath Hearst Castle. Ding, ding, ding. That's the correct answer. You should definitely go if you haven't. So, a little context. We have talked for a while about fiscal policy, what it is, how it's used, and we want to know, how does this affect prices and how does it all fit together? So what factors affect price level? What's inflation? Is there an ideal level, and how would you get that ideal level? And then what's the policy response specifically to monetary policy when you have a supply side or demand side shock to the system? Different types of recessions. Do we have different tools for each one? Here we go. Inflation. It's useful to check in with your own expectations. During the next 12 months, do you think that prices in general will go up, go down, or stay where they are now? You see how important and complex people's expectations about the economy are. Via Fred, here's a look at some inflation expectations in the last few decades. You can see coming out of the 70s, high inflation people were still expecting. This is the 1-year expected inflation rate. Still expecting pretty high inflation. And you can see what sort of anchors people's inflation expectations. Things came down as inflation and prices really moderated through the 90s. Started getting a little heated in the early 2000s, and we had this recession, which brought down prices and brought down people's expectations eventually. And now we've got some other wild stuff happening. You have the COVID supply chain issues and stimulus payments, but inflation expectations were higher. They are starting to come down at this point. So by what percent, like being specific about how much you expect prices to go up or down on average. So if we look at that last graph, it looked like people were thinking there was somewhere between 2 and 5% inflation going forward. And that is not too far off of what most economists and policymakers like to see, which is around 2% inflation. In this unit, we're bringing back the wage setting, price setting model. And in case you need some more help understanding it, there is an expanded explanation out in the Honor Ed platform, linked in my little technical support module, or check out sections 9.3 and 9.5 again. No shame in reviewing, and it is definitely worth your while. This is an important model. Don't be afraid to struggle through it. That's what it takes. And The textbook does a really good job, I think, of logicking through. Again, you do not need to understand this model with the isocost or any indifference curves. You basically just need to get behind the idea that workers on the left-hand side here and the wage setting curve are about pay and motivation. So there's a bottom level that they will not work for less than, and they will definitely accept more wage than the minimum, but they do have a minimum. And so you can think of this as like the labor supply curve. And then if you understand over on the right that firms are motivated by profit and that a couple of things matter to their ability to mark up or make profit, some of that is how much competition there is in the economy, and this chapter revisits that idea and sort of what causes firms to be able to raise or lower prices. All right, and now to choose the appropriate colored lightsaber, green. All right, let's look specifically at the price setting curve. So the wage setting curve kind of is a little easier to understand. So the price setting curve is the firm's price. Now, remember that the price setting curve is measured by wage over price. So that if the price that the firm's setting, and all firms are setting for their products, increases, this whole number, wage over price, will decrease. And so you'll get basically a higher price, which is better profit, other things equal for the firm, will yield a lower price setting curve. So that should help you understand, if something happens with wages or prices, what the price setting curve will do. Now let's turn our attention to this labor productivity, this top red dotted line. What does that represent? That represents, in a sense, the total revenue. So notice that it says output per worker. So this is basically like your workers are producing a bunch of widgets and they are selling for X dollars each. And so that's the total sort of revenue that the firm collects. Now, they also have to pay their workers. So if you think about that price, think about the wages and the cost of wages. If their markup is higher and other things equal, the wages are lower, right? That's one way to get markup higher. The gap between the top red labor productivity line and the price setting curve is higher. So firms are able to take a higher markup. You should see more distance between labor productivity and price setting curve. For our purposes, we're going to assume that labor productivity is fixed in all of our questions and all of our analysis. We basically leave this unchanged and talk about conditions that might leave firms increasing or decreasing their price setting curve. So again, you can think of the output per worker as being built up, or this is like the total revenue per worker, basically, labor productivity, as being built of two things, the real profit per worker and the real wage per worker, right? So real wage per worker, you can think of that as a cost of production for firms, and if there's markup, it's the real profit on top of it. So putting those together, the idea of equilibrium, that your wage setting curve and your price setting curve will always tend to come to equilibrium where they cross. So the price setting curve has an equilibrium and predicted where the economy will settle. And there's more to talk about, but we've done some of that already, and this is just a review. But you should know that if markup is decreased, if firms cannot take as much of a markup, the price setting curve goes up, and if they can take more of a markup, the price setting curve goes down. Mostly because of what's happening to the price. They can charge more of a price, higher markup, lower price setting curve. If they can charge a lower price, if they can't charge as high of a price, then firms get less of a markup, workers get more wage, and that's how the pie of total revenue gets split between employers and workers, and that can change depending on conditions in the economy. All right, let's practice some of this stuff. If aggregate demand heats up and people are spending more, what happens? Where is the new level of employment? Assuming we started from A, pause if you want, think about this for a minute, maybe even graph it, and then I'll share the answer. So you're basically being asked for if there is a positive demand shock in the economy, will we end up employing more or less than 9 million people? And the answer, of course, is more. So you expect to move to point B rather than point C. Point C would be fewer people employed, so not what would be consistent with an positive aggregate demand shock. Another kind of question for you. If there is now more competition between firms or for each firm, what do you expect to happen to markup or profits, all else equal? Think about this for a minute, and I'll share the answer. All right, so if firms have to hustle a little bit more against each other, we would guess that profits would fall, and this is correct. Markup falls, profits fall, and firms are sad, but workers are probably happy. They get a bigger share. Okay, so that same idea, let's apply it to the price setting curve. If there is now more competition for each firm, what happens to the price setting curve? Does it shift up, shift down, or does the wage setting curve shift up or down? Think about this for a minute. I'll let you know that it's not C or D, it is the price setting curve. And it is a shift up because, as you remember, wage over price, if you are taking less of a price, the price setting curve should go up. Okay, now here's a key question. If aggregate demand heats up and people are spending more, what happens? Does this look like a recession or an expansion? It's an expansion. And what direction do wages take? Are they going to rise or fall? We've already decided the price setting curve goes up. Wages probably will rise. And now we have an expansion with rising wages. That's going to have an effect on inflation.